So please help me welcome Kristen Hawkins.
Thank you for that kind introduction and the follow. It's all about the likes. Thank you all for being here today, your commitment to Legatus and this incredible organization that I'm honored to be a part of. Thank you for your enormous difference you've made for our church and our country and our pro-life movement. I believe it's really thanks to many of you here in this room, many I'm honored to say have served as my mentors over the years, that this gathering is even more special than when we came together last winter. For this June, every American witnessed the wonder of Roe v. Wade's demise. Today we gather during the first year and half a century where America is no longer suffering under the scepter of Roe. And you don't need me to tell you this, but it was not easy to get to where we are today. In fact, the journey between the moment Roe was handed down 50 years ago to the moment it was struck down this June was long and difficult and sometimes even a bit dangerous. But today I want to argue that it is that road, the radical road, that we must travel down once again in order to reach our final destination, an America where every life is protected in law and in service, where direct abortion is unavailable and unthinkable no matter the circumstance. Students for Life was launched on this radical road. My family has embraced this radical road, sometimes kicking and screaming. And my goal for you this morning is for you to leave here this weekend choosing the radical road for yourself, for your parish, for your diocese, for your community, to see our movement reach our final destination. And for what it's worth, I firmly believe that when we're headed in this right direction, we will be surrounded, not by directional road signs, but by his signs, his wonders, confirming we're going right. My first experience with the radical road happened more than 16 years ago. That's when I was asked to launch Students for Life, knowing we had to become a post-Roe organization because we knew at the moment Roe ended, our movement would need a trained army, one that was ready and trained, ready to go to our state capitals, ready to be deployed in our communities, in our cities, in our campuses, in all 50 states, ready to lead the charge for what came next. And I remember not long after we launched, we were holding our first swanky fundraiser in Manhattan at the Harvard Club, which we were told you'd never be invited back again after we brought our defund Planned Parenthood van and parked it out front. A trusted mentor pulled me aside after this event and said, you know, I love your passion. I get this a lot. We love your passion. It's so contagious. But you know, you really should stop saying phrases like, when Roe versus Wade's reversed, we will abolish abortion. Because no one in this room actually believes what you're saying. And you're trying to get support from people who think that you're just a naive little girl. You need to be more realistic. You know, I could have played it safe. I thought about listening to my mentor's advice, but I'm so glad to say I didn't. Our team chose to follow the radical road instead. That road led me all the way to the steps of the Supreme Court on June 24th, where I had the distinct honor to read the words before the pro-life generation, before all of the pro-abortion protesters, before every media camera from every news station, to say the Constitution does not confer a right to abortion. Roe and Casey are overruled. It was along that radical road that a newlywed 21-year-old with no business experience had to learn how to grow a small ragtag group of student volunteers into an organization that today employs nearly 100 full-time staff who are entrusted to steward some more than 20 million of our supporters' every year. Today, we serve more than 1,400 groups in all 50 states. We've trained more than 160,000 young people who contribute more than $22 million annually to our country in in-kind service. I'm a numbers person. I can go all day with this. This means hundreds of our student leaders on campuses across the country are going to do what they do best. Have conversations, changing the minds of 10% of young people they reach in person and 20% of those they reach online. Transforming their campuses to support pregnant and parenting students so no woman ever again has to feel like she has to choose between her education and the life of her child. And activating more to join us on campuses and in our communities, in our state houses. But of course, we know we didn't get here by ourselves. We stand on the shoulders of giants who came before us. We call those giants at Students for Life the original or OG pro-life gen. Those who in 1973 refused to be silent when Roe was handed down and their neighbors and friends said, "It's decided, it's over." Leaders like my mentor Phyllis Schlafly and Jack Wilkie and Joe Scheidler. It includes the angel investor who pledged his very generous retirement payout to ensure those most directly targeted by the abortion industry, young people, would finally be given a voice and a way to speak out. It includes many of you, faithful, courageous leaders and heroes of mine, like Tim and Pat Von Dolan, Rob and Bernie Neal, Shan and Tim Patton, who've committed time, talent, and treasure to help grow the pro-life movement over the last 50 years. There's no doubt that choosing the radical road, I have no doubt that choosing that road helps Students for Life become a force for good in our country. And now we're poised to make even a bigger difference in a post-Roe America. But before I explain what that looks like, I want to share with you what choosing a radical road can look like on a personal level. As I'm sure many of you have launched businesses know and can relate, the time between launching Students for Life and finally throwing Roe into the ash heap of history was quite busy for me. 15-hour days, 90-minute commute to the office if I got up before 5 and traffic hit. When I was pregnant, finding places that were safe to stop along that commute to take a quick power nap, sleeping on the IKEA sofa in the office for a couple of years, along with constant travel to campuses and rallies and networking events. Sometimes I feel like the sleep deprivation and constant stress have caused me to miss out on years of memories with my children and my husband. It was hard. It was really hard. And it was made even harder with some close calls we've had with our children, 2 of our children who have cystic fibrosis. So preparing for the fall of Roe, knowing that I would be needed everywhere at once, and determined not to fall back into my pre-COVID routines, and embracing the challenge of finding a way to cherish every day with my children, a little over 2 years ago, my husband and I chose a radical road. Much to the displeasure of my parents and my friends, who said there would be no way 4 children could live in 425 square feet. Despite the pushback from those on social media who shockingly feel that they have a very vested interest in my decision-making, which claimed it was selfish for me to deny my children a normal childhood filled with TikTok videos and drag queen story hour at their public school. We sold our brand new home and moved into, I know everyone's gonna want to talk about this at lunch, a 43-foot fifth wheel camper. My house is actually a half a mile down the road right now. For those of you keeping count, that means 6 humans and 3 puppies and 425 square feet. Let me tell you though, choosing that radical road has been one of the best decisions my husband and I have ever made. That's because it's given us permission to take my family alongside me in this journey, making it their mission as well as Mom's. It's allowed us to witness God's greatness in the creation, He's given us in person from the top of Mount Rendezvous. We cheated, we took the tram, to the red rocks in Sedona, to the turquoise water down in the Keys, to learn and appreciate the history of our nation that too many have forgotten, yet has so many more lessons we still need to learn. Truly, if you ask me where I'm living today, I can tell you. If you ask me where I'm living in a couple months, I will say I don't know. We have no set roadmap, as we simply choose where we want to go based on where I'm needed for Students for Life or the hands-on history lessons we know we want our children to explore. And since I'm the perennial passenger, I do not drive that thing or back it up. And apparently I'm terrible at giving backup directions because those are the only fights we ever have is the backing up. But since I'm the perennial passenger, I'm also known as the snack maker, the throw-up catcher, the puppy holder. But my most important role is the navigator, as I get to do all the choosing. Friends, I think when I think about the pro-life movement and the moment we are in right now, I kind of see ourselves in that same position. This open road that's before us. To God's glory, we have found ourselves in this brand new era, one where there literally is not a map for us to follow this journey. We're charting the course, drawing it out as we create the post-Roe America we want to live in. And I think you'll agree that the road before us is going to be a long one. And I'm talking Maine to Alaska with 4 kids and a pickup truck long. And like any parent who's ever ventured out on a road trip with small children knows, suffering will be guaranteed on this journey. You laugh, it's so true. So what does the radical road look like for our movement within the next weeks and months and years ahead of us? I want to start by telling you a little about what we're doing at Students for Life, day in and day out, to fight back against the violence of abortion. Hopefully this helps inspire some ideas. On campuses online, we're having those conversations, rebutting the misinformation being spread to our generation in shocking speed online. This generation who was actually fearful when Roe was reversed because they have never lived in America without legal abortion. We have to rebut all of the lies, those lies that those who support abortion continue to propagate, that we want women to die during pregnancy, that we want women who've suffered a tragic natural miscarriage not to get standard medical care, or those who demand that we accept the evil, that it's merciful to abort a child because of who their father is. Our goal is to see Students for Life groups grow from 1,400 groups to all 2,700 four-year college campuses in the next 5 years. A massive but critical goal. We're engaging in our communities to ensure no woman stands alone. The past year, our students have knocked on 120,000 doors. Knock on the door, we say, hey, we're not here to talk about a politician. Person calm us down a little bit. Well, we're here to talk about abortion. We had to alter the script a little bit on that one. But we're asking our community members, what do they know about the nonviolent resources? The more than 3,000 pregnancy centers and maternity homes that are located in every neighborhood in our country. What do they know about those resources? Shockingly, 75% of the neighbors we speak with in neighborhoods that are literally surrounding abortion clinics do not know pregnancy centers exist. We have to educate the neighbors at the door about what they do, and then we target them for 6 months. 6 months later, 14% more know what a pregnancy center is and how it can help them. We're engaging at state capitals. This August, our second Life at Conception Act took effect in the state of Oklahoma, banning every single abortion in Oklahoma, making abortion a criminal act for those who commit it, not punishing women who are the secondary victim of the abortion industry. Our work in West Virginia and Indiana, South Carolina, and soon to be Wyoming will ban and has banned chemical abortion pills, now the leading type of abortion. We're working with every ally we can to protect women, to serve families, even launching an entire effort to figure out how the pro-life movement can better speak into adoption and foster care reform and laws in our state capitals. We're engaging on Capitol Hill, which means building that critical mass needed for a federal abortion prevention act with the long-term goal of seeing the 14th Amendment for all. Of course, we have to set our sights on baby steps, things like defunding Planned Parenthood, stopping taxpayer funding of abortion, stopping chemical abortion. We have to keep doing those things. Working first to ban abortions when children have beating hearts, heartbeat prevention acts. But let's be clear. Like I tell my children on every long drive, each of us has a seat in this vehicle and are responsible for ensuring we get to our destination safely. So no screaming and shouting. And your roadmap, and I understand your roadmap to help the pro-life movement reach the destination may certainly look different than mine, depending on your life experiences, skill set, the state or community you live in, or your tolerability for being trapped in a tin box with your family. But I promise you this, I promise you, you have a lot of open roads in front of you. And I encourage each of you to choose that radical road going forward. No matter how countercultural or challenging or alienating it may seem. As Coach Harbaugh reminded us last night, if God is for you, who can be against you? Who can be against us? So here is my charge for each of you today. First, choose a road where you'll speak out about the violence of abortion, particularly chemical abortion pills. Now I'm gonna do a little education. I'm not talking to you about Plan B, an over-the-counter high dose of the birth control pill that's supposed to suppress ovulation, prevent conception, and sometimes can end a human life. I'm not talking about Plan B. I'm talking about a pharmaceutical cocktail of 2 pills known as RU46, whose sole job is to end the lives of preborn children who are developing in the womb up until 11 weeks, who have beating hearts and are growing. First by starving the child and then inducing contractions to expel the child into the toilet, allowing chemically tainted blood, tissue, and human remains pollute our waterways, harming the fertility of our aquatic and farm life. These pills can also, not only are they 100% deadly for children, can do serious damage to the moms who carry these babies, jeopardizing their own health, their fertility, even their life, as they have a 4 times higher complication rate and a 10 times higher death rate than our traditional surgical abortion. And thanks to President Biden's weaponization of the once-admired Food and Drug Administration, these pills are now available via pharmacy at your local Walgreens, Rite Aid, and CVS. And it's only a matter of months before every pharmacist and pharmacy tech in America, no matter their conscience, no matter their religious beliefs, will be forced to dispense them. And then it may only be a matter of years before these drugs are sold over the counter, where anyone can get them, even sex predators. And if that's the goal. This would not only dramatically increase the number of children who are killed in abortion in our country, but it will normalize abortion into our culture in a way that Planned Parenthood has only ever dreamed of. Friends, we can't let this happen. Beyond stopping these deadly drugs through the force of state laws and some innovative environmental regulation enforcement that I'm currently recruiting an army of environmental lawyers to employ, you can talk to me at lunch about toxic sludge. Just as the pro-life movement began praying in front of abortion facilities, standalone abortion facilities, to shine a light on the tragedies happening inside and offer help to struggling moms and families, we now must establish a public presence in front of America's pharmacies too. We have to prevent the normalization of chemical abortion that we've already seen throughout Europe. And we have to offer hope of the abortion pill reversal, which can work about 50% of the time. And the state of Colorado is now threatening to criminalize even speaking about it. Second, choose a road to stand up for the conscience rights of our fellow Americans. In the last few weeks alone, the abortion activist who plays our HHS secretary, Javier Becerra, urged his Department of Health and Human Services again to take aim at the deeply held religious beliefs of business owners. Despite the Supreme Court already telling Javier Becerra when he was the Attorney General of California that you can't force nuns to pay for contraceptive drugs and devices and health insurance. Yeah, he's that same guy. Despite the Supreme Court already striking him down, they've already instructed HHS to once again force every business in America, regardless of the business owner's personal beliefs, to pay for abortion-causing drugs, devices, and surgeries in their health insurances. We know these abortion extremists will stop at nothing to force doctors, nurses, and medical professionals to forsake their Hippocratic oath in order to spread the culture of death. This is how they spread it, through force. We must fight for our freedoms of speech and conscience and stand beside those as they do that, or else they will take them away. Finally, choose to keep the church, this is the most important, choose to keep the church moving forward in the fight to affirm the dignity of every human life. And I'm glad you agree. In the wake of the Dobbs decision, some in our very own movement have cautioned us to kind of chill out, be silent, slow down, pull back, only focus on this aspect, not this aspect, because politics is dirty. In fact, just a few weeks ago, at the March for Life and the National Pro-Life Summit that I'm honored to host in Washington, I heard a student from a Catholic school come up to me with one of the most heartbreaking sentences. She said, "I loved being here. I'm going to take you up on this. I know I'm called to do this. I'm starting a pregnancy center as soon as I graduate college. I'm only sad I won't be here next year because my bishop says we don't need to come back to DC." The cardinal in Washington actually canceled the entire vigil mass. There is no, I'm going to be very clear about this, there has been no bigger source of momentum in the pro-life movement over the last century than from our bishops, from our priests, from our Catholic schools who have sent scores of young people from across the country to the March for Life and the National Pro-Life Summit every January. Truly, the Catholic Church launched the pro-life generation, which I have the honor to lead. And right now, a lot of our decision makers are planning not to sponsor that annual trip to Washington moving forward. I need you, the leaders, to help set them straight. There are signs and wonders that show that we are headed in the right direction, but we are not there yet. In fact, encouraging your bishop or diocese to keep supporting these pro-life pilgrimages might be the most important things you can do, because I guarantee you this pilgrimage, while it's tough and it's hard and it's always January and it's cold, rainy, sleeting the whole day, except this year the sun was shining because God was smiling. It's always hard. It's so worth it. Because I know, this theme of signs and wonders, we look for these big signs and wonders that are all around us. I see them every year. And the smallest interactions and the quickest conversations I have at the march. at a pro-life summit. And they're clear proof that our movement is headed in the right direction if we keep moving. This year I met an incredible young girl, Isabel, who came with the Toledo diocese, who's 11 years old, who came up to me, who hand wrote a letter to President Biden asking him to uphold his Catholic faith in his office with a little 40 Days for Life pen, and she was asking everybody she met to sign her open letter. I was honored to be 137th signer. This year I met a hardcore atheist teenager who my security guards were kind of freaked out by when she chased me down on the street. We weren't sure where that was going to head. But she came up to me to say, I saw your video. I've changed my mind. I'm now pro-life. I'm an atheist, but I'm pro-life. But you know what? I had to hitch a ride with this Catholic church from Charlottesville to bring me up here. But I'm still atheist. And the Catholic students were like, not for long. I've seen it in one of our very own team members, who many of you have met over the years, Maddie Schulte, who committed her life to the pro-life movement when she was, and she'll say this, dragged to the march and the pro-life summit by the St. Paul Archdiocese when she was just 14. I see it all the time. This pro-life generation has been possible because of the church, because people like you were willing to invest in them and sow those seeds. Despite what the press and the mainstream media would like us to believe, our movement is not slowing down, and we are certainly not stalled alongside the road. The open road is ours if we choose to drive it. And just like my family's journey, including my husband's driving, which is slow and steady, always in the right lane, avoiding the insane Florida drivers and the insanely large potholes on I-20 and I-80, we in the pro-life movement know we're not going to get to that destination driving in the left lane, going 90 with the top down the whole time. We recognize we're going to have to stop to refill our gas tanks, to repair the things the potholes have damaged. And we're going to need to look out for the signs and wonders along the way to make sure we're headed in the right direction. But I've seen these signs and wonders sitting in this passenger front row seat. Roe being reversed, babies saved, lives transformed, like my friend Connor, who went from pro-choice atheist to fierce pro-life Protestant and now to priest. The radical road can be long and it can be windy, but it will get us to the right place. But of course, you need to bring your snacks and you need to charge your iPads for the long trip, because it's not going to be quick. If you need proof, look at the history of the fight for civil rights in our country. Since we made the choice to start traveling across the country and living on the road, I've been honored to say we've taken our kids to Fort Sumter, where the Civil War began, to Gettysburg and Vicksburg, which are the keys to victory, to Appomattox, where the war to end the horrors of slavery was finally finished. We've wandered through the halls of the Civil Rights Museum in Jackson, Mississippi, where I had the unfortunate honor of having to explain to my 7-year-old what that scary white robe meant and the terror it inflicts on so many still in our country. My daughter and I got to sit in the spot where Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat. We stood behind the lunch counter in Greensboro. This fall, my husband's real excited for this one, we're going to Alabama to go to Birmingham, to the jail where Martin Luther King Jr. wrote the words that inspired so many to follow his lead down a radical path. And I want to share those words with you because I read them almost every day. He wrote, "I have reached the almost regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in the stride towards freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I can't agree with your methods of direct action, who lives by the myth of time, who constantly advises the Negro to wait until a more convenient season." He further went on to say, "There was a time when the church was very powerful. It was during that period that the early Christians rejoiced when they were deemed worthy to suffer for what they believed. In those days, the church was not merely a thermometer that recorded the ideas and principles of popular opinion. It was a thermostat that transformed the mores of our society. But things are different now. The contemporary church is so often weak, an ineffectual voice with uncertain sound. Far from being disturbed by the presence of the church, the power structure of the average community is consumed by the church's often vocal sanction of things as they are. If the church of today does not recapture the sacrificial spirit of the early church, it will lose its authentic ring, forget the loyalty of millions, and be dismissed as an irrelevant social club with no meaning. I'm a Catholic convert, so this speaks truth to me. Friends, leaders, throughout it all, throughout all the travel, through all the history lessons, I've been constantly reminded of the tragic fact that after the Civil War ended, where over 500,000 Americans died, it took 99 more years from the end of the Civil War to the Civil Rights, to see the Civil Rights Act signed into law. I don't have to make a comparison to you. We've already toiled for 50 years to rid our country of Roe versus Wade. We cannot wait for another 49 years before we reach an America where abortion is unavailable and unthinkable. We must be radical and choose to plot a new path, venturing down the bumpy roads, even going through the construction delays. Choose the roads that will lead us to the positive peace, the presence of justice that we seek, working in our communities, in our parishes, our campuses, our state capitals, and yes, even in Washington, D.C. And by we, I mean our church. For the church must not be a thermometer, but the thermostat. And you, legates, must turn it all the way up and get in the driver's seat and lead us there until we reach our final destination. Thank you.